There's a lot of monster movies out there, but the Alien franchise introduced us to the alien species known as the Xenomorph. And it's easily one of the most recognizable horror icons in the history of film. If you've been following this channel at all, you know I love horror movies. And the Alien franchise is easily among my favorites of all time. By now, there's plenty of movies in the Alien universe, especially if you want to count the Alien vs. Predator movies, but we're going to look at the original masterpiece that inspired them all, Alien. And if for some reason you haven't seen the original Alien movie yet, yes, there will be spoilers. Alien could be put into multiple categories, a sci-fi, horror, slasher, but at its heart, it perfectly fuses all these genres into one. In 1978, Halloween revitalized the slasher genre and jump-started all the slasher movies of the 1980s like Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. A year later, in 1979, Alien did the same thing for sci-fi horror flicks, and there have been an endless number of shameful copycats and rip-offs since then. We've had plenty of alien monster movies before this one, especially with the insane amount of alien invasion movies of the 1950s. But Alien had a personality of its own, and audiences hadn't seen anything like it before. It was the definition of a classic. Alien starts off in the year 2122 and introduces us to the crew of the commercial spacecraft Nostromo, which is on the way back to Earth from a job, and the crew is just waking up after being in cryosleep for a little while. The ship was sent out to space by the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, and this company sends out ships around the galaxy to mine planets, gather resources, and establish colonies. All the actors in this movie are perfectly cast too, and it does feel like these people have been stuck on a ship together for a long time. The chemistry between all of them just feels natural. Nothing feels forced.
Oh, I feel dead. Anybody ever tell you look dead?
And the crew of the Nostromo, you've got Dallas, who's the captain of the ship, Lambert, the navigator of the ship, Brett, the engineering technician, Kane, who's the executive officer, and if this actor looks a little familiar to you, he also plays Chancellor Sutler in V for Vendetta. Ash, the ship's scientist, Parker, the chief engineer, Jonesy, the ship's pet cat, and I saved the best for last. Sigourney Weaver is Ellen Ripley. This movie was the birth of one of the most badass characters in all of movie history. Ripley became the main character of the Alien franchise and turned into a pure survivor and xenomorph expert after this movie. It's always nice having a strong female character in movies, and Ripley is a perfect example how to do one right. She is the perfect template.
You're guaranteed by law to get a share.
What?
Why don't you just fuck off?
What?
On the way back to Earth, the Nostromo and its crew receive a distress signal from the nearby planet LV-426, and they argue about whether they should even check it out or not, but decide to go ahead and do it. Obviously a terrible idea, especially if you're in a horror movie set in the isolation of space. Once the crew lands on the planet, they discover a crashed ship with a dead pilot that's clearly not human, and this entire set looks impressive. It's dark, it's eerie, and completely otherworldly looking. I mean, think about what year this movie came out, 1979. Audiences had never seen anything as bizarre as this in movies. And after some poking around, they find a chamber full of eggs, and they look great. You even get a glimpse of something that looks like it's moving around inside one of the eggs. Today, this would all be CG, and I know I sound like a broken record when I say this in most every review, but I love practical effects. It just always looks better. You know these actors are looking at a prop in front of them with a puppet of some kind moving around inside. It makes the whole situation that much more believable. And eventually, of course, the egg hatches, spits acid at Kane's helmet, and jumps on his face. I can imagine audiences getting a glimpse of this thing back in 1979. It had to be terrifying. Can you imagine one of these nasty, wet spider monsters jumping on your face like that? It's disgusting. The facehugger looks really detailed too. Later on, you get a closer look at it, and it looks awesome. It's obviously a prop instead of CG, and you can see specific parts, organs, and whatnot. None of them have any idea what this thing is that's on his face, and the movie does an amazing job at creating this mystery behind what this creature is. And if you've never seen an Alien movie before, you can't help but think, what the hell is that thing? The crew tries to figure out how to remove the facehugger from Kane's face, but every time they even attempt to move it off of him, it wraps its tail around his throat even tighter. And when they try cutting it off, they realize it's got acid blood that can eat away through pretty much anything.
That crap's gonna eat through the hull.
Next deck.
So they stop messing with it. And eventually, they find that Kane no longer has the face hugger on his face anymore. It's off, and it's dead on the ground right next to him. So everything's perfectly fine now, right? End of the movie with a happy ending, right? No. Just in case you're not familiar with how the aliens in this movie work, the facehuggers hatch from eggs and attach to the face of living creatures and slowly deposit an egg down the host's throat. This egg sits in the chest, and a baby xenomorph eventually hatches from it, and it's born by breaking out of the chest by force. Literally one of the most horrifying things you can imagine, leaving the host with a hole in their chest and quite dead. And again, I have to say how impressed I am by the props in this movie. When the baby alien is born, it looks like a real creature, even to the point where you could see the little trails on its side pumping like veins. The detail is just incredible, and I can't give the creators of the movie enough compliments. From this point on, the movie just becomes this terrifying fight for survival. The crew goes around the ship looking for this baby alien so they can get rid of it, like a little mouse infesting a house. But what they don't know is that this thing grows rapidly, and it's already a full-grown adult. It's a fierce hunter that moves around the ship through the air vents and stalks its prey. One of my favorite shots is when Brett gets dragged away by the alien screaming, and the camera just focuses in on the cat staring blankly. This shot used to scare the crap out of me all the time as a kid. I have no idea why, but just the way they filmed it and zooming in on the cat's face, it's all just super creepy. And Ripley finds out from the ship's computer that the corporation that sent them there knew about the alien life forms, and purposely sent them there to retrieve one. The crew was also completely expendable. This company clearly does not care about its employees. The only one on the ship that already knew about all this beforehand was Ash, who actually ends up being an android that was programmed to make sure this happens. So he tries to kill Ripley by shoving a magazine down her throat. What a dick. That's an awful way to go. But he does get knocked out by Parker and dismantled. Oh, and I always thought his android blood, or whatever it is, just looked like some kind of Alfredo sauce. I mean, look at it. And with the threat of this android on board over, they just have one problem left. The alien that's running around freely killing everybody. Through the entire movie, the crew gets picked off one by one, until Ripley's the only crew member left alive. Well, the cat lives too. I'm gonna count him. And when she's the only one left, the movie does this fantastic job of giving off this feeling of tension and isolation. Just imagine being in a ship, who knows how the hell far away from another living human being, while being hunted down quietly by a creature that can put a hole in your head within a second. I don't think we're ever gonna get these iconic movie monsters ever again that look this good. Obviously, the alien is an actor in a suit, which looks great, and you never really get a perfect, well-lit look at the alien. And this is a huge thumbs up that I give this movie. Horror movie monsters are always at their best when you keep them semi-mysterious, in the shadows, and only show glimpses of them here and there. Let the viewer imagine what's hiding in those dark shadows. And another thing the movie does perfectly is convincing you that everything is okay just before all hell breaks loose. The first time is when the facehugger falls off Kane's face and everyone thinks everything's okay. And they do it again near the end of the movie when Ripley activates the self-destruct sequence and rushes to get off to an escape ship. Then she watches as the Nostromo explodes, killing the alien on board and quietly resting her eyes.
3, 2, 1.
Everything's nicely resolved again, right? No. The thing somehow got in her escape pod, and she's stuck inside this little ship with it. It almost makes you feel like this thing is just unkillable. So she freaks out and puts on a spacesuit. Then she opens up the airlock, and the alien goes flying out of the ship into the vacuum of space. And and it still tries climbing back in through the engine. It had to get blasted away as the ship boosted away, and finally she gets rid of it. Ripley goes into cryosleep and hopes that someone ends up finding her floating around. Seriously, if you haven't seen the original Alien yet, do yourself a favor and check it out. It is undisputably one of the most classic movies that's ever come out of Hollywood. Put it on late at night, turn the lights off, and pump up the volume. There's just really no experience like this movie out there. And make sure to come back next week too, when I review the sequel to Alien, Aliens. Leave me a like and a comment down below if you enjoyed the video too. What's your favorite Alien movie? And go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. Anyways guys, this is Fabian. I'm out of here for now. Till next time.